Good morning, members. We have a quorum, and this is the appointed time. I call the meeting to order. Item number 1, confirmation of minutes. Have we received any proposals for amendments? No, we haven't received any. Any members support the confirmation of minutes? Minutes confirmed. Thank you. Seconder. Minutes confirmed. Information paper issued since the last meeting. A letter from Mr. Ka-piu and Mr. Wai-keung has been circulated to members. Date of next meeting and items for discussion. The date of the next meeting is after the Chinese New Year, the 18th of February, which is a Monday, at 10:45. The administration proposes to discuss the following items: an overview of training and development for civil servants, an update on the provision of paternity leave to government employees. Members, do you agree with the proposed items? Mr. Tang? I don't have any problems with the two proposed items. And in relation to the committee organizers, under the Social Welfare Department, the NCSE staff, we only have 3 minutes, and there was no representative from the administration here today. Should we maybe set aside half an hour for discussion next time? Let's see how it goes, and if need be, we will put it in the next agenda item. Next, briefing by the Secretary for Civil Service on the policy initiatives of Civil Service Bureau, featuring in the 2013 policy address. Can we ask the administration to come in? We have Mr. Tang, Mr. Wong. We're asking Mr. Tang, the Secretary, to join us. Good morning, Secretary and Permanent Secretary. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Secretary, when you're ready. You may start. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. In relation to policy initiatives in the policy address in relation to civil service, I have a few points to go over with you. First of all, it's about the strength of the civil service. We all understand that because of the heavy workload followed by the policy address, we will increase our manpower. And as to the actual number, it is yet to be confirmed. We are vetting the departmental proposals internally, but because of operational need, we believe that the manpower level will be increased. In the past few years, there is an annual increase of about 1%. When we consider proposed increase, of course, we will exercise caution. The second point highlighted in the policy address is training of the civil service. First, we'd like to enhance the training on civil servants' innovation and creativity. And when it comes to public works proposals, we hope that the civil service can inject innovative ideas into these projects. For the middle rank civil servants, there are more opportunities for them to communicate with the public and stakeholders to explain government policies and measures. So we would like to enhance their competence in communication and also to enhance their resilience to deal with work pressure. These are the key areas we have planned. We have a number of training courses, say for example, when it comes to leadership, seminars on positive psychology and also problem-solving courses. They will be launched shortly. The third area highlighted by the Chief Executive is communication between the management side and the staff side, about enhancement of communication so that the cooperation can be improved in order to better serve the public. We will actively encourage understanding and communication through the central consultative committees and other areas. That is my introduction, and I will be happy to take questions. Thank you, Secretary. We have 5 members, 6, including Emily Lau. Tang Ka-piu, Wong Kok-hing, Sin Chung Kai, Claudia Mo, myself, Emily Lau, and Mr. Poon. 5 minutes. 5 minutes each. First, Mr. Tang. In relation to A, B, and C in the paper, I think you have missed one point. NCSC, which is close to the heart of labor unions and the civil service, this will be touched on in this meeting and the next meeting. There are a number of points. If there is going to be proactive involvement, there should be an increase in manpower. A number of civil servants, staff unions are worried because of the high number of retirees in the coming years. Yes, the strength stands at 169,000, but that is worrying. The last government did something good. They undertook that NCSCs will be employed continuously for 5 years, which means that there is a continuous need, and the staff member is qualified. Otherwise, he will not be allowed to stay for 5 years. But I don't see it touched upon in the policy address. We are concerned about NCSC. How are you going to take in the NCSCs to become the permanent staff? You said that a number of departments, the RTHK 21st Anniversary Social Welfare Department, Committee Organizer, 12 years, and there are a large number of NCSCs in Hong Kong Post working for more than 5 years. So when it comes to taking in NCSCs into the permanent system, do you have any new initiatives to tell us? If there is going to be a wave of retirement resulting in a large number of retirees, then do you have anything planned to tackle this problem? But if it is not mentioned in this paper, it doesn't mean that we don't attach any importance to it. You may recall that last time we had a detailed discussion on NCSC. I believe you understand that the basic policy of NCSC and also the fact that we have conducted review. Long-term work should be taken up by civil servants. In the past few years, civil service posts have been created, and as we've explained, every year there is an increase in the manpower of civil service. There are some new work, and there are some work that was originally taken up by NCSC and is now taken up by civil servants. In the coming year, as mentioned in the policy address, manpower level of the civil service will be increased. When it comes to NCSC staff that has been working for quite some time, as we've explained on the last time, that is not our main consideration. We consider whether the work is a permanent one, and if it is, it will be taken up by civil servants. And if work will only last for several months, a year, it may not have to be taken up by civil servants. Or they may be types of work with where there is no civil servants that have the knowledge or the expertise. If it is regular work, and if it can be done by a civil servant, then it will be turned into a civil service post. Of course, we cannot do it in one go, because we have to take into consideration resources. NCSC staff applying for civil service posts, we will be fair and open. If they are qualified, they will be recruited. We've explained that, of course, the experience they have accumulated will put them in an advantageous position. Of course, it depends on the situation, because working in the same job for a long time does not necessarily imply that the person is qualified and the most suitable. In relation to the large number of civil servants going to retire, as you know, that we have resumed open recruitment, so promotion and other areas will be in place to tackle the situation. Next, Mr. Wong Kok-heng. I have some questions for the Secretary. I'm also concerned about a recruitment of NCSCs. Ms. Denise Yu, in the last government, gave us clear undertaking and goals for every year. First is 4,004. And then she told us that there will be 5,000 and something. I don't remember the actual figure. I don't have it with me. So I'd like to ask the Secretary, for the new term of government, when it comes to NCSC, how many posts can be turned into civil service posts? Can you give me an exact figure as an indicator, a goal? I hope you can follow the footsteps of Mr. Denise Yu to show clearly the ledge goal that you will increase the manpower of the civil service, so NCSC staff can be taken on board to become civil servants. Thank you, Mr. Wong, for your question. We have given an answer in the last discussion. In 2006, there was a review. It was about 16,000 NCSC staff members. And we thought that at that time, 4,000 posts is more suitable to be taken up by civil servants. And as at the middle of last year, about 3,800 of them have been turned into civil service posts. We have conducted further review. 1,800 posts can be turned into civil service posts. 1,200 of them have been converted into civil service posts. From time to time, we have liaised with departments, with NCSC staff, to find out what posts can be turned into civil service posts. We follow that up constantly, and every year we relate to this panel about the situation. Last time we did it, and maybe later this year we will give you a comprehensive picture. We are conducting reviews with certain departments where there are a higher number of NCSCs working for quite some time. We're looking into the possibility of turning these posts into civil service posts. I think the Secretary's answer is quite vague. In the new financial year, how many NCSC posts can be turned into civil service posts? I hope they will tell me a clear indicator. Mr. Nis Yu really gave us a very clear figure. Secretary, you may not be able to give us an answer today. Could you do so before we vote on the policy address? Can you tell us how many posts can be converted into civil service posts? The number, Secretary. Actually, there are 2 points. First, we are constantly reviewing the situation, and at the end of the year, we will look at the situation about conversion. And in relation to the budget, a lot of things have to be confirmed. And as to the number of posts to be created, number of civil service posts to be created, we will give you a detailed answer after the budget. Secretary, can you, before we vote on the policy address, not the budget, give us more information? As I've explained, we can only confirm a number of things after the budget. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Thank you. Paragraphs 8 and 9. There are initiatives to enhance morale. The administration said there will be some award schemes, but it was not further elaborated. In the private sector, they conduct people's survey to get an understanding of staff's view on company policy and treatment, to find out about morale, so that a comparison can be made. There are a lot of such surveys done in the private sector, and there is benchmarking. I wonder if it has been done in the civil service, and is there any plan to put this into practice? You only say that there are 77 civil servants being awarded under the scheme, but you have 169,000 civil servants. So how do you find out about morale of the majority of the civil servants? And how do you find out what they think about your policies, and if there is any need for improvement? Have you done any surveys? Do you have any plan to do so? Well, I'd like to say, elaborate on 3 points. This is only an example. Individual departments have award schemes of their own, so this is only an example. They are not the only two. We have done comparisons with the private sector, in particular remuneration. We will talk more about the starting salaries survey to ensure that the pay will be broadly comparable with that in the private sector. And in relation to morale, in the past 6 months, we see that the issue that is of most concern to civil service is manpower. We will increase manpower to cope with service demand. We think communication between frontline staff and the management is important. It cannot be resolved solely relying on the central consultative committees. We hope to enhance communication so that decisions made by management can be implemented by frontline staff. And sometimes the experience of frontline staff is of high reference value to the management. We will continue with our work in this regard.
So we feel if all departments can do a good job, then they can boost morale. So you haven't conducted staff surveys. Well, then how do you compare trends, whether the morale has gone up or down? Where has it improved? Where has it, where there was a shortfall? Well, in the private sector, they do these surveys every 2 or 3 years. Well, we don't have a plan to do these kind of surveys. I think it would depend on the relevant bureau and department. From the Civil Service Bureau, we have regular meetings, and we are aware of the difficulties they face. Well, if you don't know where the problems lie, how do you boost morale? How would you know if they are motivated or not motivated? You mentioned boosting morale. We hear a lot of people saying the morale is low, people are leaving the civil service. Well, do you have any measures to deal with that? It seems that in paragraph 8 and 9 you have not met this challenge. Yes, we are aware through the departments. We are aware. We also have some central committees that meet with the civil service unions. For example, their biggest concern is staffing levels. We're dealing with that right now. And the internal control has to be done at the local level. We also need to consider, are there any problems with recruitment? Basically, the civil service is still attractive. Ms. Claudia Mo, I still want to follow up on the NCSC question. We have same work, different pay, and that creates a very divisive atmosphere. You also have some low-cost labor. The Hong Kong government is an unscrupulous employer now. Some people have worked under the NCSC and RTHK for 21 years. Now, you also said that being in a post a long time does not mean they're qualified to become a permanent civil servant, even though they might have an advantage when there is a recruitment exercise. The question is, after 21 years, it's almost time for retirement, so I want to follow up on statistics. How many NCSC posts can be converted to civil service posts? If you don't have concrete figures, can you have some percentages? And in your estimate, current serving NCSC, what's the percentage of NCSC staff that could be recruited as permanent civil servants? Did you provide the figures on the last occasion? Yes, thank you for your questions. As I explained just now, in 2006 we had estimated there were some 4,000 such. Well, that's figures from your last survey. I'm talking about in the new financial year. What's the latest figures or percentages? Let me supplement the latest figures. I just said it was 06, it was 4,000, and currently there are some 1,800 that can be converted to full-time civil servant, and some 1,200 have already converted to permanent posts. Now, we are liaising with the different bureaus and departments, and those are the figures, the latest figures I provided. I'm very dissatisfied with this response. In the current, well, the current budget is about to be announced. Do you still don't have the latest figures? Well, I explained the next financial year, how many civil servants will be, how many extra civil servants there will be. We still have to tabulate these figures. But as the CE said, we do need to increase our manpower, and we're still handling that. Just now, the question was asked by Mr. Wong, Mr. Tang. So why don't you provide a document when you have done the figures? Yes, after the budget we can respond. Just now, we talked about the civil servant work pressure and training. We are aware that social welfare, they receive complaints from the grassroots. It's very discriminatory in immigration. When the minorities make applications, they are being discriminated. You mentioned there was work pressure, there's innovation. What do you mean by innovation? Are you also aware that there's complaints within the civil service of sycophantism? That is, there's a yes sir culture. Well, Ms. Mo talked about complaints regarding provision of service. Well, we do have the ombudsman that deals with that, and there are also complaint hotlines. And when we receive these, we have to deal with it seriously. If it is confirmed there is a shortfall in provision of service, then it will be dealt with seriously. Regarding innovation, we have to think out of the box. Do we have to abide by conventional procedures? Well, I do encourage new thinking, and we welcome opinions on management. We don't have a so-called yes sir culture. We encourage that. Well, there's a deputation meeting at 11, so we have to exercise strict control. I have a simple question. A lot of civil service groups tell me that there's heated debate on retirement provision. Well, after the financial tsunami, there was a suspension of recruitment of civil servants. Now people are very healthy. They're still energetic in their 50s, and they are very mature. And after 2000, we had recruited civil servants without pension, and when those retire, there's a group that without medical benefits and pension between the ages of 55 and 65. So will the government consider postponing the retirement age, because that can reduce the pressure on pension? Well, a lot of people are very active. They don't need to retire early. I've heard these views over the last 6 months, but currently we don't have any firm direction. This is a complex issue. Any change on remuneration and retirement arrangements will be affected. Another concern is that if people stay in the post longer, are they still as capable, especially in the disciplined forces? And second, it might also affect promotion prospects for the younger cohort. So we need to strike a balance. We also understand that there might be a discontinuity, and sometimes some retired staff can come back to help, and we do make such arrangements. In some applications where there's a severe discontinuity, some staff would have to stay on longer, or after retirement they can come back on a contract basis, not necessarily in the same post. And we feel this can handle the discontinuity or change of guard problem. Yes, so we will continue to listen to your views. This is a large topic. But regarding operations, we want to maintain some flexibility. Yes, I understand it's a complex problem. There are a lot of ramifications. You also need to legislate. You have to amend legislation. You have to change the pension calculations. Yes, if you change the pension, we need to amend the law. And we also need consultation. Currently, we don't have any concrete plans, but we'll listen to your views. You could perhaps target 1 or 2 departments as a pilot scheme, and perhaps it might also relieve the pressure on the universal pension. Well, we don't have a plan to study this, but we will listen to your ideas. Of course, your proposal could be considered, but once implemented, a lot of departments would think it would roll out, and I think any decision should go through a thorough consideration first. Thank you. Ms. Emily Lau? The CE in the policy address said the civil service is bearing more and more stress and workload due to high expectations. That might be the case. But we see senior officials exert a lot of pressure as well. If you want to investigate senior officials, we also receive complaints from the public that there's a double standard. Some are investigated more thoroughly. So I'd like to ask the Secretary, how do you handle investigations? How do you maintain political neutrality? How do civil servants exercise their functions neutrally? Have you received complaints? The Census Bureau falsification scandal is a disgrace. I don't know how they will present their statistics in the future. I would suggest the ICAC investigate that. Is that professional misconduct? So, the Secretary, are you aware of these problems? How will the public remain confident that the civil service is politically neutral, they're graft-free, and so on? Very important questions. Well, there are a few points. First of all, we have the civil service guidelines that say very clearly that they have to be politically neutral, they have to be graft-free. We deal with everybody the same. That's stated clearly in the civil service guidelines. Even for senior officials, politically appointed officials, there are very clear guidelines. I have not received complaints that they have been politically influenced and a certain case has to be handled differently. So each department will follow up the case according to its practice. Of course, with the Census Department, we are dealing with this problem very seriously. The Census Department has also convened a committee and have recruited an external party to see if there was any wrongdoing. If there was wrongdoing, we will if necessary, have to take disciplinary action, but at this point, it's still too early. We have to wait for the investigation results. But if there was any wrongdoing, we will deal with it seriously. The census incident should not be handled internally. Some people have called for an independent investigation committee. So is this a case of a public official misdemeanor? So shouldn't the ICAC be involved? Well, whether ICAC should be the investigating party, I cannot comment on that. Now, whether our investigating committee is neutral, the committee already has an external investigator. Chairman, I'm saying when there is public official misdemeanor, should there be an investigation by ICAC? Does this come under the ambit of the ICAC? Well, first of all, is it a misdemeanor? We have to wait for the report before we can tell what actually happened. Well, I hope the unions, civil service unions, if they are being pressured politically, there is a channel for them to air their views, yes. In the guidelines, of course. They can express that to their superiors. At the permanent secretary level, they can reflect these problems. Chairman, we see there is a bias in enforcement of the law. Will you take the will you be proactive? I think you're referring to Building Services Department. They had already explained. They investigated according to the individual case. There was no bias. They were impartial. We had looked into it, and they had not received any pressure to deal with it differently. The CE in his campaign platform he had made pledges to increase some posts to meet service demand. In his campaign, he also mentioned the remuneration and conditions of service between contract staff and establishment staff should be closer, and he also emphasized communication between management and staff. Well, there is communication. So I want to ask the CSB, how will you enhance communication? Will you meet with more civil service unions? The unions want collective bargaining. Do you have any specific measures to strengthen communication? Because there is a substantial description. So do you have any new initiatives? Basically, there are two areas that will follow up. We'll remind the Bureau to exercise existing channels. We have consultative committees for communication. We're also looking at how to remind the civil service unions how to collect frontline opinion. We'll spend some effort on that. Basically, we feel that the mechanism is functioning. I think it's just a matter of mentality, whether we can have more compromise, more discussion, and we'll see what can be done to strengthen this area. You'll maintain the 5 major minor channels. Will you attract more civil service unions? Will you have regular meetings? If you're talking about the 4 major minor committees, communication is not unilateral. We have to take on board the staff view. So besides the committees and unions, there's still communication between the departments and other minor groups. They're at the department level and so on.
Mr. Lee Chuk-yen, thank you. I think that the government, I think we've been criticizing the government regarding the NCSC staff. If you look at the annex, we asked you for some figures the last time, and we can still see how the administration is actually suppressing and actually bullying the NCSC staff so that their employment is not secured. But in fact, you need to hire them for a long period. In the annex, those who have served for more than 5 years, they have more than 4,700. Every time, if you like, you will divert our attention. Every time we talk about 4,000 odd NCSC staff, you say some of them are part-time staff. In the post office, there are about 600 part-time staff. Don't tell me that these are part-time staff, because you give us the same answer every year. You have 4,100 full-time NCSC staff who have worked for more than 5 years. And the way you bully them is that those who are given a contract of less than 1 year is more 3,600 odd. 1 to 2 years, more than 9,000. A 1 to 2 year contract obviously would mean a 1 year contract, because those who are offered contract with duration of 2 years or above, only 1,400 odd staff. So you'll really be unfair. Every time you offer them a contract, it's of such a short duration, but meanwhile you still want to retain them. If in the end, if it is going to be a short-term contract and they will need to leave after 3 months or 6 months, at least they know that the job is of a short duration. But the work is long-term in nature. For more than 4,000 NCSC staff, they've worked for more than 5 years. I'm sure many of the NCSC posts actually require the person to work for more than 5 years, and in some cases even more than 10 years. So first of all, you are reluctant to face the issue as to why these NCSC staff who work for more than 5 years and why they can't be converted into permanent staff. You said that you're still waiting for review. Does that mean that you need to? Does it mean to take 5 years to complete the review? And in some cases, you say the departments concerned operate as a trading fund. Is it because the government wants to make a profit and you have to exploit your staff? And of course, the salaries and the conditions of service are very much inferior to civil servants. For example, the entitlements to public holidays and labor holidays. Why is it that for some contract civil servants you offer them 12-day labor holidays? Civil servants, they must have 17 days of holidays. So there's a big difference here. Chairman, the CST has not been doing anything for so long. So for the present administration, do you have the will to resolve the problem relating to NCSC staff? I don't think you will do that. You will simply continue to procrastinate. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for your questions. First of all, I must say the last time we explained that for a long time we need to have these NCSC staff because some of the jobs are not full-time in nature. For the others which are full-time in nature, they are for short duration, like lifeguards, or for certain jobs there is a peak only during a few months in a year. And of course civil servants cannot take up a particular post only for a couple of months in a year. And for certain types of work, there are no such, they're not, performed by civil servants, and hence we need these NCSC staff. Of course, if the work is long-term in nature, and if we satisfy the requirements, of civil servants, they should be converted to permanent civil servants. Of course, the trading funds, of course, on the other hand, will also need to consider the financial position. You asked about the difference in pay and conditions of service. You must understand that for the conditions of service, even at different times, civil servants have different terms of service. In terms of salaries and conditions of service, even within the civil service, they may change from time to time in the light of circumstances. Chairman, I don't think that would mean that they're still refusing to tackle the problem. In that case, I think the Secretary may as well resign. I think time is up, Mr. Lee. Our hearing is about to start shortly. Chairman, the CE in his policy address commended the performance of the civil servants and said that he attached a lot of importance to partnership with the civil servants. In the policy address, he said that given that the workload of civil servants is expected to increase, many colleagues have already said that they are most concerned about the NCSC staff. I hope the Secretary, well, I want to say this to you, Mr. Secretary, when you consider increasing the hiring more civil servants, I think you really should. I think for the NCSC staff who've been hired to work for a long period of time, you should seriously consider converting them to full-time civil servants. I expect that there will continue to be some contract staff. Some members have pointed out in the past that the NCSC staff's salaries and conditions of service are far inferior to their full-time civil service counterparts. If you don't convert them to be full-time civil servants and hire them as contract staff, you must bear in mind that some of these NCSC staff have worked for a long time, and the longer they stay, the bigger the discrepancy in pay and conditions of service. So, Secretary, I hope you will really address these two issues. First of all, given the increase in workload, would you consider converting NCSC staff who have worked for a long time to become full-time civil servants? For contract staff, I think that the discrepancy in salaries and conditions of service should seriously be reviewed, so that other than civil servants who are permanent staff, there are also many contract staff, and they are also providing service to the public. These are the 2 points I'd like to want to highlight. Thank you. Basically, if there are suitable posts available for conversion to civil service jobs, we certainly would do that, and we'll continue to consider this. We also must stress that there are situations in which we must retain NCSC staff. Their salaries and conditions of service, I think we have to leave it to the departments concerned, who will make the consideration in the light of the market conditions. If the salaries offer is too low, they simply wouldn't be able to hire any staff. So individual departments will have to make the adjustments in the light of demand. But the civil service establishment and the NCSC establishment are different. The reason is that we want more flexibility and less constraint. And inevitably, the NCSC staff salaries and conditions of service are different from their full-time civil service counterparts. But there are quite a large number of such colleagues, some in the mid-level, some are working in the front line. We also have retired civil servants. So different departments will have to make that decision in the light of their own circumstances. Chairman, very often we hear that individual departments can make the decision, but very often these departments, when they make the decisions, they are very much influenced by your policy decisions. For some departments, when they recruit people, some departments will attach more importance to experience, while other departments do not. So sometimes they just simply want to, control the number. And well, some colleagues talked about the efficiency and the morale of the civil service. I think there are a lot of implications here, because when people have to have to work work in different departments, and if you have these NCSC staff who work for a long time, then I think you should consider, making more optimal use of your resources. Mr. Wai-keung, I'd like to remind the Secretary that we have received submissions from civil servants telling us that the relationship there are difficulties in terms of the relationship with the NCSC staff. The civil servants, the full-time civil servants, told us that they don't have the power or the authority to assess the performance of the NCSC staff. And in some cases, the NCSC staff do not like to be managed or supervised by the full-time civil servants, and hence sometimes there are frictions. I hope the Bureau will address this question as soon as possible. On the subject of NCSC staff, while the Bureau tell us that every year going forward, there will be about 1% of the total number of civil servants. I think 1% of I think about 1,000 odd NCSC staff, that's about 1% of the civil service, will be converted to full-time civil servants. But if we look at the latest figures, NCSC staff who have worked for more than 5 years, there are more than 4,000 of them. How do you plan to reduce that number? I also regret to say that the Bureau said that anything that involves, a permanent, long-term demand for service, and that you will consider converting the NCSC staff to become full-time civil servants. Together with Mr. Ka-piu, we've put in submission that the lump sum payment scheme for the SST will not be scrapped. What will be scrapped is that the department will resort to tricks by outsourcing the service to NGOs. While the service continue to be provided on a permanent basis, but at one go the service is outsourced, and the so-called permanent service or long-term service, and NCSC staff who originally could have been converted to become civil servants, their hopes are dashed. So will the Bureau continue to use such tricks so that NCSC staff who have worked for more than 5 years will be left out, and they will and their aspirations to be converted to full-time civil servants will be dashed? I'd like to clarify. When I said about the 1% growth, I was talking about the entire civil service, including some NCSC jobs which could be converted to become civil service posts, and it also includes the recruits that would need to be hired because of additional workload. Mr. KWOK also talked about the question of accountability. NCSC staff in any department will be subject to the same supervisory regime, and in the end they will still be supervised by civil servants, and they will be subject to assessment. Of course, the assessment will probably not be the same as other civil servants, but as far as the performance is concerned, the department is concerned will also have to be accountable. Thirdly, you talk about the outsourcing of service. Basically, the decision rests with the department's concerned. If there are certain jobs which have to be outsourced, of course, the department will need to deal with it in a thorough or comprehensive manner. But the position of the CSB is that if certain jobs could be undertaken by civil servants and they need to be performed by civil servants, of course we would deploy civil servants to do it. But if the job is outsourced, it would have to be that the department doesn't have the need to do that. I think for the SWD is outsourcing a service by hiring community organizers. I think for service which are long-term in nature, and the NCSC who originally are doing such jobs, the job is outsourced, so that those who have worked for 5 years or longer originally could have been converted to become civil servants. So I hope the Bureau will work hard to monitor the department's concern and forbid such outsourcing. I think the decision to outsource or not rests with the Department Policy Bureau and the department's concern. I don't think you can adopt a broad brush approach. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, I think that is rubbish. In ancient time in China, you still have a hierarchy of management. It's good that you have people to enforce the system. If that person doesn't do the job properly, he should be censored. So I think what you're doing is even worse than what was done in ancient China. What you should be doing is to supervise the subordinates. If they don't perform well, they should be sanctioned. I think LegCo is telling you that there is a problem, and yet you are denying that. So I think, we certainly have very poor governance here. What you're saying is not logical. This is exactly your job. We're telling you that we've identified a problem. But then, well, it would mean, I think if we leave you to make the decision, there will be many victims who would be wrong. LegCo members have received complaints from trade unions and members of the public, including civil servants, and you're telling us that I've given the autonomy to those departments. The problem is that these departments are not doing it properly. For the so-called for the service which have been outsourced to NGOs, this is exactly show the problem. So how can you do that? For the person who is is dismissed because of the outsourcing, what's going to happen to him? Does it mean that he have to apply for CSSA payment? Are you training up these community organizers so that they will be smarter when they apply for CSSA relief? Mr. Leung, if the department outsources its work and certain colleagues are affected and have to leave, then that department will have to come up with proper arrangements, such as informing such colleagues earlier, or to provide job referrals. Mr. Secretary, this is exactly where we see a lot of grievances and complaints, but there's nothing to do to change it. We've told you about all these problems. Could you give us a very simple report to respond to our concerns? Tell us where we are, what we have said, where we have been wrong. Well, I think so. We are the one who would relay the grievances to you. Do we need to be punished simply because we are the messenger? This is ridiculous. Like the Chinese Civil Service Association, they've listed, so many complaints or grievances. You may say they are lying, but you can't disregard this. They provided figures and examples. honestly, if they ask you for some bite, at RTHK NCSC staff, Mr. Wong Tat Singh passed away. Do you think this should have happened? Siu Wai Leung, if he gave a wrong answer to a question, he would also be criticized.
So this Mr. Wong died. Is it tolerable? Do you understand? It's the same for you civil servants. You will not tolerate the administration because you may one day see your post outsourced. And I frequent the courts. There are lots of services being outsourced. Security guards don't know what they're doing. Anything else to add? No. Then I will continue. When CY assumed office, he wanted to please the civil servants. And in the policy address, he just added this paragraph which seems out of place. You have to do something. CY Leung will have to explain why this system, which has been heavily criticized, is still in place. You don't need the support of the AB. You don't need to find land. So you can do it. Your time's up. Next, Mr. Ip Kin Yoon. Chairman, when I was studying some courses about public administration, one of the important explanations about a public policy is that this policy will direct our behavior and conduct to achieve consistency. I had a question in mind when I was listening. Do we have a policy? By that I mean a policy that is consistent in different departments. I heard that the NCSC will be dealt with differently in different departments. So is it the policy that this is allowed? So the departments and the bureau will have their own discretion. And it is not necessary for them to have consistency. Is my understanding right? On the issue of NCSC, does the administration have a policy? If so, what is it about? And if it is for departments and bureaus to have their own policy, then should we ask the relevant bureau and department to come to answer questions? Can the CSB represent the administration to answer us in relation to questions related to NCSC? This is very important. Say, for example, the Education Bureau. I understand that there is a large number of NCSC staff, and in turn, it's affected the subsidized schools in different institutions because they follow suit. And there are different policies in different schools. So I am worried. Do we have any clarity in our policy? If you say, well, it's our policy to have individual policies in the departments and bureaus, CSB plays no role, then it itself is a policy, but I do think that it is wrong and it needs to be reviewed. 2 points. First, policy. We've explained. Basically, we think the situation under which NCSC staff are recruited is different, so we delegated the power to departments to go ahead with recruitment. Of course, if there are guiding principles, say for example, the terms of the contract cannot be less favorable than the employees' ordinance, and they should not be more favorable or less favorable than those applicable to civil servants in similar ranks. So there are some guiding principles. And in relation to the Education Bureau, as we've explained, that basically the department have already decided that some posts will be or have been replaced by civil service posts, and we are liaising with them about what and how many of such posts can be replaced. We're discussing it with the Education Bureau. There are guiding principles, but there is discretion for departments to decide on how to recruit NCSEs and their terms of employment. The role played by the CSB, does it involve supervision and coordination? Can they intervene? If they conform with the guiding principle, of course we will play no role. If they've encountered difficulties, they can raise them with us, and we will explain to them about the guiding principles. Thank you, Secretary. We have had all questions answered in this agenda item. Next, we have an important agenda item. It's the 2012 starting salaries survey. I hope that we will finish this item before 11, and then we'll have a break of 10 minutes before we start the public hearing with deputations on employment situation of non-civil service contract staff. Secretary, I have a few points to make. First, as you know that once every 3 years we will conduct a starting salaries survey, which is started in 1996. The aim is to ensure the civil service pay is broadly comparable with that of the private sector. As you know that for non-directory post and individual ranks, there are 12 qualification groups with their individual remuneration level. 2012, the Standing Committee conducted the survey for us. They have looked into 136 private section organizations from different sectors. It shows that there is sufficient valid pay data in the Pay Commission survey to make the comparison. They will continue to adopt the third quartile level. And there are 2 QG's qualification groups that have shown deviations from this level. They are QG9 degree and related grades and QG10 model scale 1 grades. And by comparison, they are higher. For QG9, the difference is about $2,000. That is about 8.8% of the benchmark pay. And for QG10, is $580 higher, about 5.7%. After detailed deliberation and consideration of the relevant factors, say for example, to maintain broad comparability with private sector, the Standing Committee is of the view that a holistic approach instead of a mechanical application should be adopted. And they have also in mind to maintain stability and morale of the civil service. So they suggest to maintain the status quo when it comes to the starting salaries arrangements. They think that for QG9, they have taken into account the differences between the civil service and the private sector. Say for example, we offer a higher starting salaries. We offer a higher starting salary, but the rate of increase in the pay in the private sector is higher than that in the civil service. And the survey cannot fully reflect the result of a shortage in manpower, rendering a higher pay. So they recommend the status quo to be maintained. The administration keeps an open mind. We are consulting the staff side and the management side. We hope that the consultation can be completed at the end of this year, and then we will decide on the final decision. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. I have a question. You said that the difference compared with the market P75 level, which is the third quartile level, and in relation to QG9 and QG10, that is in paragraph 8. But if I refer to your report, table 3 of the findings of the report, it seems that there is quite a difference for QG8 as well, that is the professional grades, professional related grades. Perhaps I would defer to May to give you an explanation. Thank you. If you refer to the report for professional and related grades, the difference, the percentage is 0.8%. So about $330. The standing committee, when looking at this survey, is of the view that the difference is within of a lower level, just like grades 1 to 7. But for QG 9 and 10, the difference is larger. If I refer to table 3, this is the finding. QG 8. In the private sector, they offer 37,000, but for the civil service, you offer 41,000. It seems to be quite a big difference. If you refer to the table on page 18, the one on page 70 in the English version, it sets out the difference and the percentage. So it's easier for you to understand it. So can you explain it to us, please? The approach of the surveys is to find the P75 pay level. We've selected some companies with posts requiring the same qualification, and we take out the P75 pay level, and then compare it with the same group. Say for example for QG8 professional and related grades, we have the existing benchmark. We compare that with the existing benchmark, and then we find a difference. So for the table on page 17, so you see the P75 pay level in the market. The difference is $336. That means we offer $336 more than the private sector. The difference is 0.8%. The standing committee is of the view that this is a small difference, so that they have not highlighted it. They've only referred to QGs 9 and 10. So for private sector, it's P75 pay level. You take into account the salary, or you have also taken into account bonuses. If you refer to 3.15 QG8, on the left hand side is the basic salary, on the right hand side is the total of cash remuneration. You've rightly pointed out that for the P75 level, it's 41,000. That is the total cash compensation. Well, if you compare it with the with QG8, is 41,000 odd. So the difference is $300 or so. So you've taken into account commissions and double pay, etc. Well, may refer that to page 18. So you have taken into account bonus, say for example in a law firm. Ms. Emily Lau, Chairman. This is about starting salaries survey. they've set out the methodology and the approach adopted. There are two groups of people who think that the administration discriminated against them. One group is PWDs, persons with disabilities, and the second group, ethnic minorities. I don't see anything about supporting policies of the administration for them. You've only included information about the private sector. I don't think the companies will help them much. So what about their situation? Do they still get a chance with a lower pay, or they've been turned away? The majority have been turned away when it comes to civil service recruitment. Well, the issue you've raised is not directly related to this report, because we only look at the market situation regardless of the type of people. And Ms. Lau, you mentioned about ethnic minorities, which has been mentioned last time. We offer the same salary regardless of race and whether you're able-bodied or not, because this will be a contravention of the Disability Discrimination Ordinance. We understand that the problem with ethnic minorities lies in the Chinese proficiency. For some grades, they may have a lower entry requirement. In this regard, they've been relaxed. Say, for example, in discipline services, the CSD and the police, the entry requirement has been lowered for people with a lower Chinese proficiency. This will be the direction we follow. Another grade we're considering is drivers or chauffeurs, because they don't need a high Chinese proficiency. But we have not differentiated between able bodies and PWDs or ethnic minorities. If someone applies for a civil service post and the applicant states that he is a person with disability, then we will make special arrangements. Say, for example, special arrangements when it comes to interview dates. If there are two candidates with the same competencies and caliber, we may incline towards employing the PWD. That is our current approach. I hope you will understand that we will not, as you will not be put into a disadvantageous position when in the application for civil service post because you are PWD. You don't have to state that you have disability. Say, for example, a clerical post. It makes no difference whether you are mobility impaired or not. We only test you for your literary skills, and we will provide facilitating arrangements. Say, for example, for examination, we will make special arrangements for wheelchair users. Chairman, the Secretary said that what I've raised may not be directly related to this. Yes, I agree, but I mentioned these two groups of people because they are the underprivileged. They wanted to join the civil service, and the Secretary said that they will not be offered a lower salary. Of course, that is correct. But I hope, Chairman, you will make this an agenda item for discussion. I have heard from PWDs. Well, you can be an operator when you are visually impaired, but they are not employed. I think the administration emphasized too much on efficiency. And if you can't offer that high level of efficiency, or if you don't speak Chinese, or if you suffer from a disability, then you'll be turned away. I hope that you will put this on an agenda as soon as possible. We hope our civil service will accommodate and will take in these groups of people so that they can tap into their potential. Can it be done, Secretary? We will have further discussions in the future. Chairman, can you make arrangements for future discussion?
You can provide us with a document. I also have some questions. Table 4, paragraph 5.2, qualification group 910. The government is higher by $2,000. These are degree and related grades. I'm a SME entrepreneur. Well, so I'm quite surprised. The starting grade salary $20,000. So what grade did you choose? We have a lot of university graduates who are receiving a very low starting salary. Even Swire management trainee, they don't have a high salary. So how did you get 75th percentile at $20,000? Thank you. The consultant, when they designed the scope and survey respondents, they had some considerations. These considerations include have to be stable, reputable companies. They shouldn't have large business volatility. They wouldn't go bankrupt. In order to provide continuity, it would also consider the scale of the company. So for starting salary surveys, we choose companies with more than 100 employees. If it's a company with less than 100 staff, we'll only consider them under special considerations. So overall speaking, they have to have sufficient entry-level posts for comparison, and we also have to see whether these companies are representative of Hong Kong's economy. So on this occasion, the consultant had chosen 142 enterprises for data collection, and ultimately 136 enterprises provided valid data. This was better than the last patron survey. On the last occasion, there were only 117 enterprises providing starting salary information. And during the investigation, the 75th percentile figure was chosen because we want the government to be a good employee. So we chose a somewhat better starting salary rather than just an average salary. Thank you, May. I understand your rationale. Because the government is the largest employer, they employ more than 160,000. So it's not easy for a small medium enterprise to recruit. So that's why all my staff are recruited by the government. Any other questions on this topic? So what's your next step? It seems that there's no adjustment. Well, we're still communicating with the civil service unions, and our consultation will end at this month, and we will submit our findings to the EXCO regarding the results of the starting salary survey. Will you return back to this committee? Yes, we will report. Well, if you don't have any views, let's take a 10-minute break because we have a deputation, not a deputation, so have they arrived? Okay?
咁或者我哋休息一陣。
Okay, let's take a break.
到你講咩，主席？
我哋
We'll start at 11. You can take a biological break.